President of the Nigeria Labour Congress, Amaechi Asugwuni. It's good to have you in the studio.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good morning.
And also we have in our Abuja studio, we have former General Secretary of Nigeria Labour Congress, John Oda. John, it's good to have you on TVC Breakfast.
Okay.
All right, let's start off this way. Before, we'll certainly give you all those details as we get along. But let me ask Amaechi here. Before a minimum wage is set, what are the factors that are considered in pitching a minimum wage at a certain amount or a certain level?
I think the first priority, rather the priority behind wage is compulsory reward for labor, and such compensation is legitimate to a worker. And as such, we believe, like the law recognizes, you set up a tripartite committee comprising of labor, government, and employers. This system has been in place with the aim of establishing a living wage, in quote. And then these are actually the dialogue itself in determining wage is about strategy, it's about reality, it's about facts. So I think the most important thing is get the appropriate framework, ensuring that whatever is achieved at the end is legal.
Okay, so that is what this committee is all about. Tell us about the formation of your committee, people from your own side and the people from the government side, and the credibility and expectations from you.
Yes, the committee, though Nigerians actually did not get the clarity of that committee. The System Man Committee, which I am a member, is a committee actually set up to work out framework for the minimum wage. That is part of its functions, inclusive of palliative measure towards the 500 billion social development for intervention. So the committee actually started their job with the minimum wage framework, which certainly was almost achieved in our last meeting. But because the committee have not concluded, we can't just disclose the entire this because it's not yet finalized. So, but I will tell you that part of the job of the System Man Committee is to establish the leadway for the minimum wage negotiation. The committee is also trying to consider certain factors that could make this very negotiation viable.
What are the factors?
No, I'm talking about certain actors that could participate in the negotiation. And like I said, disclosing them now will be too early because we are still debating them.
So far, are you satisfied with the angle of the debate?
Yes, of course. The information, both from the government angle, we try to, give and take. First and foremost, it's not actually how many you are in the number that matters now, because the committee, the way they operate, they believe in consensus than costing for election during whatever we do. So it's about argument, facts. Superior argument swallows the opposite. So in that dimension, whatever they bring, who become the chairman, naturally government should produce chairman because they are part of the team in order to actually oversee beyond the minimum wage to avoid unnecessary distraction or influences from the third parties.
Okay. Let me bring in former Secretary General of the Nigeria Labour Congress, John Oda, joining us from our Abuja studio in here. John, it's good to have you on the program.
We still don't have John yet.
Okay, the connectivities are, but certainly as we have him, we will bring him on the program. Now, let me still come to Amaechi on this. When issues of minimum wage comes to the front burner as to we need a review of the minimum wage, it seems there's always a friction. There's always friction between the labor, between the government and all. Why is it not possible to have a framework where you know that? Because from the last government, from Yar'Adua's President Yar'Adua's government, where a five-year bracket was agreed, I think this seemed to be the first time that a ceiling or a time frame is agreed that when it gets to this level, this has to be reviewed. Why isn't there a framework, maybe even something constitutional, to take care of such kind of reviews so that we don't always find a friction between the Labour Congress and the government when it comes to review of wages of workers?
Yes, I think conflict in such dimension become natural because in industrial relation practice, you also find out that the two parties are of opposite interests. And at all time, Labour always wants to earn more, believing that they also put in their best. And then employers, on the other side, they also don't feel like adding any money, also with the feeling that you should even work better than you do. So because of interest dimensions, it becomes very, very prominent that whenever you get to the table or a point where you have to ask for review, ask for addition, the employers will kind of establish some characters of resistance that actually will give room to unnecessary conflict. But like you said, before now, the issue of framework was difficult, unlike you just explained we have of recent. But I still believe that after this current review, future, we should be able to develop a standard that will make it look automatic, such that even the public will have the knowledge of what it takes.
Except, of course, if the revenue generation is automatic, like you know, it's not automatic. So what happens? You have to be able to reflect the realities on ground.
No,
if you have something that is permanent.
During the negotiation.
Yes.
But I don't think there is any economic situation that will avert the principle of coming together to review. One thing is agreeing that at every point or at a given point, we should bring ourselves together for the review. And then secondly is when you sit for this review, you should be practical. You should be able to assess what is on the ground. But the automatic I meant was a nature that this was due in 2015, and you find out that up till now we are seeing to worker framework. Before you know the year is already over. So the framework I was looking at is to also ensure that violation of difference of date should also call for penalty, so that either party will ensure that even negotiations should start before the expiration of the agreement, so that it takes effect immediately.
All right.
All right. Now, the Ayuba Waba-led faction of the NLC has pitched the minimum wage, or the proposed minimum wage, at 56,000. Now we hear the Joe Ajero-led faction is pitching theirs at 90,000 naira. Now, what factors are considered before this particular amounts of money are being pitched at the amounts they are pitched at?
First and foremost, for the purpose of clarity, you know, when you, for the purpose of peace, allow certain process to take long, the public may misinterpret it and give it an injurious name. The word Ajero-led and Ayuba-led, for instance, I am the National Vice President of Nigeria Labour Congress, and I don't think there are any other vice presidents that you could find through Ajero that will make you believe that we're actually running a two-party government. So if Ajero as a person is actually calling for recognition, I know we are taking it gradual in resolving, but that has never given him the capacity, and I don't think.
Except, of course, the federal government perhaps used them as an instrument to whittle down your strike. Now, you were supposed to call for the fuel subsidy removal.
Yeah, they use him. He made himself available anyway.
Okay,
and
so he's recognized.
No, he was not recognized to be the NSC president. He was recognized to be part of NSC. So because he was available to be used to divide the house, he actually celebrated such opportunity. But I will tell you that the same government recognized Ayuba as the president. The same government, in any event we carry on, they send participant and representative. Even the SGF right there also said that the only NSC they recognize is the NSC led by Ayuba, that they recognize Ajero based on the fact that the electricity sector is also a key sector in the exercise or discussion.
We'll look into that, perhaps.
So, but that is, well, like I said,
perhaps
just to get
some need for harmonization within your house. But let's bring you some information about this minimum wage. We'll need to reel out some information now, right?
All right. Now let's look at how the present minimum wage came about and the clamor for a review. Now, in 1998, the minimum wage was 3,500. But the year 2000, the minimum wage was split into two, now with the federal government paying its workers $7,500, while the state and private employers paid $5,500.
In 2011, the national minimum wage was reviewed from 7,500 to the present 18,000 naira by the Jonathan administration. Leaders of Nigeria Labour Congress (NLC) in December 2008 publicly demanded for 52,000 naira 200 minimum wage for workers. This wasn't implemented.
Now, the National Minimum Wage Act, which former President Jonathan signed into law in April 2011, has a 5-year reopener clause for new negotiations to review the new minimum wage. Now, the Nigeria Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress are now pushing for a review of the minimum wage, saying the current wage is grossly inadequate in the face of current economic realities. Now, the group is proposing a 56,000 minimum wage. This is coming at a time more than 27 states cannot pay salaries of workers.
All right, Labour leaders say apart from the fact that the Minimum Wage Act was due for review, the fall in the value of the naira, the increase in electricity tariff, the biting economic situation in the country, and the increase in goods and services necessitated the demand for a review of the minimum wage from 18,000 naira to 56,000 naira.
Now, the Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, says the present 165 billion naira monthly salaries to federal civil servants was over-bloated and could no longer be sustained by government. Now, Edo State Governor Adams Oshiomhole, during the Workers' Day celebration, promised to increase the minimum wage from 18,000 to 25,000 for employees in the state public service.
All right, big question. Should state governments be allowed to fix or determine or peg, as it were, what they can pay workers' salaries based on the economic realities on ground?
I think, salaries also could come in terms of award. Government have the right to award addition to your earning. It doesn't contradict the law. But the minimum standard agreeable by law is the one that certainly checkmates the basis of salary in the country. So if a state comes up today and they announce additional 7,000 to your earning, we celebrate, we congratulate them. But whenever we also put this instrument of minimum wage in place, it swallow whatever exists in Edo or whoever that happen to announce addition.
But wouldn't that be insensitivity? Because in the current realities, many states can't even pay the basic 18,000 naira minimum wage salary. So if a state is saying, okay, fine, I'll be in the face of that, I'll be able to pay 25,000, for instance, and if the new minimum wage as negotiated takes effect, and then it has to swallow up that, if at that point the state government is saying, okay, fine, this is the amount we can pay, wouldn't that amount to insensitivity?
No, it will not. It will amount to compliance to the law, because the minimum wage itself is a product of the art. The question is, whatever Edo does is credited to the governor. Don't forget, most of these awards, they are political. And we allow them because it's also pay. And when you talk about people not being able to pay, the question is not about payment of salary. The question is the inabilities of governors to generate revenue. Because whether you negotiate or not, they are still not able to generate money. So the area you make sure that right things are done, waiting for the right people to occupy office. Because until they generate money, the challenge they are crying for continues. So you find out that people who have not thought of solution and they keep crying for pain will continue in pain until they actually think of the way out for their economy.
But in all fairness, would you say the NLC, the workforce, has been alive to its responsibility in terms of productivity?
For sure.
Oh, really?
Yes, I agree, and we advocate that in terms of productivity, don't forget, the law authorizes a worker to make himself available for work. And once you are available for work, you are given responsibility by your employers to enable you exercise your function. And we believe also that workers, average worker who does not perform, certainly will face either disciplinary measure or you may even lose your job. In the quest of employers to actually build a higher productivity, they can go extra mile in determining who they keep in their workplace, by measures of performance.
So what do you make of workers, NLC staff, I mean workers who, when it comes to issues of privatization, take for instance the NITO privatization, where there are allegations of workers being a clog in the wheel of development when it comes to privatization. How would you rate that in terms of productivity?
It depends on how you classify workers' role in privatization. When you privatize, don't forget the purpose of privatization is to also to boost productivity. And everything ties to the employers. When they say the employers has the knife and the cutlass and the yam,
yes,
it doesn't necessarily mean that the law is in their hand to control everything. The question is, they own the resources. So the question also remains that an employee given an instruction to perform, because like I said it earlier,
yes,
the performance of an employee is what the employer needs. And because you have performed well, whatever be your conduct that is also not acceptable by the employer, whether privatized or not, it's either you are rejected on the basis of non-performance or you are promoted for the basis of performance. So I still believe that the employer should do more of the assembling of instruments that will propel productivity, whether government or private sector. They have the responsibility. In fact, in those days, I remember in those days, the purposes of wage, at a point, wages are measured with productivity of a worker. So it's no longer waiting for 5 years to review. But
so
also,
if the governor feels, based on your analogy now, if we follow that, if the government feels the workers in my state are not that productive, I want to pay them 10,000 naira minimum wage, would that be okay by you?
No, that means we also miss the application of performance. Performance is measured per worker, per function. You cannot generalize to mean that the workers of a state, they are not. That means the governor of that state is not just unproductive, but a fake governor. For a governor to even survive in a state, it means that the workers are actually productive. But if a particular worker is not productive, certainly he may be out of the scheme. The essence of using the salary to measure productivity is to determine who works, not actually who should earn less or more. The question, the minimum is for all. Productivity is for those that work well. When you work well, even in your own organization, those who perform excellently could get addition. Don't forget there is a difference between salary and incentive. So when organizations award incentive, they do that with the extra marginal belief that these people have added beyond we expected.
And that's meant to motivate.
Motivate them. Then so for me, salary is legitimate, irrespective.
And it's non-negotiable.
It's non-negotiable. No, it's statutory.
All right. Getting along with the information we were rolling out earlier on, an average Nigerian has needs: housing, feeding, clothing, transportation, savings, among others. But can the minimum wage take care of all of this? These are some of the realities we are trying to look at this morning. Now, if we get to the issue of, we know about, it's on record, about 27 states are still struggling to pay workers' salaries, minimum wage at 18,000 as it is right now. These are realities on ground. Now, if the new law comes on board and it is adopted that the new minimum wage should be whatever it should be, as the case may be, whether it is at 56,000 or it's at 30,000 or it's at 35, depending on whatever is agreed at the end of the day, how would it play out at that? What scenario will come up when states can't even pay the 18,000 naira now?
I think something big will happen in this country.
What is that?
Something big will happen in this country that, there are some clauses in the Constitution that is not being exercised. Be you a national member of a Senate or representative, or even from the state assemblies, there are clauses that permit constituency to call you back if you are not performing.
Yes.
And I also believe that by the time you have such revolution in this country, people will know that being voted into power is to be accountable to the people. You can't just go to assume office as a governor and to declare what you cannot do. So it boils down that you already declared that you can't do the job. Because if you can't pay salary, I've said it repeatedly, a governor that cannot pay salary is not fit to work. Because at the point where you cannot pay salary of your staff, that is where failure lodges in. So an average governor must see salary as a priority in a state. Organization that does not consider salary to be the first action, because whatever you think you gain, whatever you call productivity, without the input of the workers, you can't get them. So as far as we are concerned, a time will come, we will still campaign for Nigerians to realize their rights and do the needful. You can't remain. Who is a worker? A worker is not the one that works without earning.
All right.
So I think we'll get there.
The worker is the one that works and gets paid.
That is the appropriate. So for me, the question is we must ensure that a worker in Nigeria is the one that works and takes care of the family.
All right. Amaechi Asugwuni, National Vice President, Nigeria Labour Congress. Thanks for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you.